Argentina, the land of immensity, where nature knows no limits. This is a land of impossible contrasts. Eternal glaciers in Patagonia, Andean peaks that brush the sky, and endless grasslands stretching across the pampas. It's like an entire continent packed into a single country. We'll discover cities that pulse with tango and passion, salt deserts that blur the horizon, and waterfalls that sparkle deep in the subtropical jungle. But Argentina is also a living laboratory of biodiversity. Whales cruising the shores of Peninsula Valdez, condors soaring above the Andes, and pumas stalking the silent steppe. Welcome to a journey through the most remote lands and the most breathtaking landscapes of this nation. Between fire and ice, between tradition and modernity. Welcome to the land of the gauchos. Welcome to the Argentine Republic. El Chaltén and Mount Fitzroy. Among the relentless winds of Patagonia, El Chaltén appears as a fixed point in the infinite vastness of the steppe, and exists for one reason alone: to be the gateway to Mount Fitzroy, the most photographed mountain in Argentina, and perhaps in all of South America. The indigenous people call this peak Chaltén, which means smoking mountain, because its 11,171-foot summit is almost always wrapped in lenticular clouds, and therefore clouds that change shape. For mountaineers from around the world, Fitzroy represents one of the most technical challenges on the planet. Granite walls smooth as mirrors that rise for over 3,000 feet without a crack where one can rest. But you don't need to be an extreme climber to fall in love with it. The trails that depart from the small town of El Chaltén, with barely 1,500 inhabitants who live off tourism and passion for the mountain, lead through valleys where condors draw circles in the air and rivers sing melodies with the sound of melted ice. The village itself seems suspended between reality and legend, with its dirt roads that empty almost completely in winter, leaving only the bravest to guard this corner of the extreme world. Laguna de los Tres, reachable with an 8-hour hike, gives you the perfect reflection of Fitzroy in its green waters, while dawn paints the rock with such an intense pink that locals call it the alpenglow effect. In these moments between silence and wonder, you'll understand why this mountain is considered sacred by anyone who encounters it. Ushuaia. The wind blows so hard that it seems to whisper something as you approach the southernmost city in the world. Sure, there are those who contest this record by citing Port Williams in Chile, but with its few hundred inhabitants, it's more of an outpost than a real city. Ushuaia remains indisputably the metropolis at the edge of the world. And it nestles between snow-capped mountains and the Beagle Channel. That is the arm of sea that separates Argentina from Chile. But what makes this place so magnetic? Perhaps it's the fact that here everything ends. Indeed, here ends the Pan-American Highway, which is the South American mainland, and even the geographical certainties you thought you had. The colorful houses climb the slopes, as if they wanted to escape the cold that rises from the sea, while the port bustles with fishermen returning with the giant crabs that inhabit these icy waters. The air tastes of salt and adventure, because from here expeditions depart for Antarctica, just 600 miles away. But nevertheless, Ushuaia wasn't always a tourist destination. Until 1947, it housed Argentina's most feared penitentiary, where prisoners built roads through impenetrable forests. Today, however, those same roads will take you to Tierra del Fuego National Park, where the wild nature of Patagonia reveals itself in all its majesty. And finally, when the sun sets behind the mountains, painting everything pink and gold, you'll understand why this corner of the world is called the end of the world. Tierra del Fuego. Imagine a corner of the world where silence has a sound of its own, and even the echo gets lost in the immensity. Tierra del Fuego owes its name to the fires that Magellan saw the indigenous Selknam people lighting along the coast in 1520. Those fires today are extinguished forever, along with the culture of those who lit them. But the island continues to burn with a wild beauty that knows no compromises. Here the pampa meets the mountain in a brusque and unexpected embrace. One moment you're walking through infinite prairies where the wind makes the grass undulate like a golden sea. The next moment you find yourself immersed in forests of Antarctic beech trees that in autumn explode in reds and yellows so intense they seem unreal. The guanacos, which are wild relatives of llamas, watch you curiously before fleeing, with that elegant and somewhat cocky gait of theirs. The road that crosses the island is a journey within the journey. It crosses peat bogs where ancient mosses thousands of years old grow, skirts lakes of impossible turquoise color, and climbs mountain passes where the silence is so deep that you hear your heart beating. Every kilometer here is a discovery, and every curve a surprise that reminds you how vast and mysterious nature is when it decides to put on a show. Los Glaciares National Park. Prepare to hear the sound of time flowing. In Los Glaciares National Park, a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1981, you witness a spectacle that has been going on for 20,000 years. The ice advances, retreats, collapses, and then is reborn in an eternal cycle that makes you feel tiny but incredibly fortunate. The absolute protagonist is Perito Moreno, a giant of ice 3 miles wide and 230 feet high that advances 6 feet per day. And if you don't believe it, it really is so. This glacier grows instead of retreating, defying global warming with the stubbornness of one who knows they are special. When a block of ice breaks off and plunges into Lago Argentino, the roar echoes for miles like primordial thunder. But this park isn't just Perito Moreno. Here hide another 356 glaciers that are born from the southern Patagonian icefield, the third largest freshwater reserve on the planet after Antarctica and Greenland. The ice tells stories of geological eras, through shades of blue that range from pale sky blue to deep blue like the night. And when the sun hits it, every crystal becomes a prism that scatters rainbows in the frozen air. And as you observe this masterpiece of nature, you'll realize that you're looking at the water that dinosaurs drank, now transformed into pure art. Bariloche. What happens when the European Alps decide to move to South America? Bariloche was born where Argentine Patagonia dresses like a Swiss postcard, yet retains its wild South American spirit. The waters of Nahuel Huapi, which means Island of the Jaguar in the Mapuche language, reflect forests of Chilean myrtles in southern beaches that in autumn explode in red and gold so intense they seem artificial. Cerro Catedral dominates everything with its 7,835 feet, offering panoramas that span from the Andes mountain range to the infinite steppes. But it's when you descend toward the lake shores that there's the real magic. We find beaches of black volcanic pebbles where the crystal clear water reflects the snow-capped mountains year-round. The woods hide secret waterfalls while ancient paths lead among stone shelters. But it's when the sun sets behind the peaks that this place reveals its greatest secret. A sky that ignites with impossible colors, reflecting in the still waters of the lakes like in a magic mirror. San Carlos de Bariloche. Stop for a moment and smell the air. Do you smell that scent of chocolate that mixes with wood and mountain water? Welcome to San Carlos de Bariloche, where alpine architecture meets the Patagonian soul in an embrace that tastes of fondue and adventure. The Civic Center, built in the 1940s with local stone and cypress wood, seems to come out of a fairy tale, but just move a few yards away to find yourself immersed in the purest nature. The cathedral, with its sober neo-Gothic elegance, watches over the city center, while its gray stones contrast with the blue waters of the lake. But this city isn't just picture postcard nature. Indeed, in winter it transforms into Argentina's ski capital, with Cerro Cathedral attracting skiers from all over South America. Its slopes wind through the forests, while the cabins scattered on the slopes offer that hot chocolate that has made the city famous. And for the more adventurous, the national park trails start right from here, promising treks among hidden lakes and mountain refuges. Villa La Angostura. In the heart of the lake region, Villa La Angostura appears as a well-kept secret between the waters of Nahuel Huapi and the peaks that crown this corner of paradise. The village stretches along the lakeshore with discreet elegance, with its stone and wood constructions that seem to grow naturally from the ground. There's no hurry here. There's no tourist chaos of other destinations. There's only silence, interrupted by the gentle lapping of waves and by the wind that whispers among the cypresses. The main street houses small treasures, including artisan shops where unique objects are born, cafeterias that smell of homemade cakes, and that slow rhythm that makes you forget the clock. But the real magic begins when you board one of the boats that sail the lake toward the Quetrihue Peninsula, where the Araucanese trees create almost natural sculptures with their cinnamon-colored bark. Furthermore, when winter arrives, Monte Bayo dresses in white and attracts snow lovers, while summer transforms every trail into an invitation to adventure. Lanín National Park. At the center of everything stands the Lanín volcano, with its 12,388 feet of perfect cone that the Mapuche called the rock that dives for its shape that seems to immerse itself in the sky. But this park hides much more than a photogenic mountain. Here extends the northernmost Valdivian forest in the world, which is a unique ecosystem where the sacred trees of the natives grow that can live over 1,000 years. Their branches open like giant umbrellas, creating forests where silence is broken only by the song of endemic birds and by the rustling of wind through the leaves. Volcanic lakes dot the landscape. Huichulafquen, Paimun, and Tromen, each with its chromatic personality that often changes with light and seasons. But it's the native deer and the endemic birds that are the true keepers of this land. The former leave tracks in the muddy trails, while the latter fill the air with calls that echo among the tree trunks. Los Alerces National Park. Prepare to walk among the oldest giants on the planet. In Los Alerces National Park grow the trees that have seen civilizations and empires born. The Alerces are Patagonian cypresses that can exceed 4,000 years of age and reach 230 feet in height. These colossi grow only a few millimeters per year, reaching incredible ages. Many were already giants when Europeans arrived in America. In the forests, the trunks are so tall and dense that little vegetation grows beneath them, and you walk on a carpet of dry leaves in constant twilight. Furthermore, the glacial lakes of the park, like Futalafquen, Verde, and Rivadavia, are set between mountains that exceed 6,500 feet, creating natural amphitheaters where echoes bounce for miles. The waters are transparent, and you can see fish swimming at 50 feet deep, while condors draw spirals in the air. Here, time has another rhythm, that of glaciers that melt drop by drop, of trunks that grow millimeter by millimeter, and of wind that sculpts rock grain by grain. It's a place where you can feel the weight and beauty of eternity. Cordoba. Extended golden plains lose themselves on the horizon, interrupted by the gentle hills of the Sierras that draw blue profiles against the sky due to atmospheric haze. The province of Cordoba is Argentina's agricultural heart, where soybean and wheat fields alternate with pastures with millions of cattle that produce the most prized meat in the world. The Sierras instead, which are secondary and not very high mountains, offer a cool refuge from the plain. The lakes of these mountains become perfect mirrors that reflect the sky, while there are also very green valleys, where the air is so pure it's considered one of the best in the world. The rivers that descend from the Sierras, furthermore, offer kayak adventures between gentle rapids and calm pools, while those seeking altitude can challenge Cerro Champaqui, the highest peak of the province at 9,462 feet, from where the gaze embraces infinite golden expanses. In the heart of all this, the city of Cordoba guards centuries of history in its majestic Baroque cathedral, whose domes dominate the historic center, recalling the colonial heritage of this land that knows how to be ancient and modern at the same time. It should also be remembered that with over 1.3 million inhabitants, it is an important university center that attracts students from all over the country, creating a young and vibrant atmosphere in its streets. Buenos Aires. The streets of Buenos Aires pulse with the rhythm of the most European city in South America. The metropolis reveals itself through its boldest contrasts, where the gleaming skyscrapers of Puerto Madero mirror themselves in the waters of the Rio de la Plata, the same docks where once docked ships loaded with dreams and hopes of millions of immigrants. In the San Telmo neighborhood, tango emerges spontaneously from the shiny cobblestone sidewalks, where couples of dancers move as in an ancient ritual that knows of passion and melancholy. Not to mention the vibrant La Boca neighborhood that tells stories of sailors and immigrants through its iconic corrugated iron houses, painted in vivid colors, an urban rainbow born from popular creativity. In the middle of cement and traffic, Palermo offers a green breath that the city knows it deserves. Its lush parks become the lung of the metropolis, where families gather for Sunday picnics and runners traverse shaded paths, while the small lakes reflect flowering trees that color spring days purple. And then there's Puerto Madero, the most spectacular urban transformation in South America, where the old red brick port warehouses have been reborn as exclusive lofts and luxury restaurants, while the Puente de la Mujer stands out against the sky like a modern sculpture. Here, soccer is religion, Maradona remains an immortal deity, and Sundays transform into collective celebrations, when La Bombonera roars with the voice of thousands of passionate fans. In the historic cafes of the center, furthermore, time seems to have stopped at the golden years of European immigration, where conversations mix with the tinkling of cups, while outside the city continues its frantic dance. Buenos Aires isn't simply a destination. It's a true state of mind that transforms anyone who crosses it. Rosario. Here Che Guevara was born. Here Lionel Messi took his first steps. And here the Rio Paraná flows with the majesty of a river that knows it has seen legends born. Rosario extends along the river coast like a city that has chosen water as its life companion, with urban beaches where inhabitants relax watching boats that transport soybeans to the world. The historic center pulses around the Flag Monument, a 230-foot obelisk that commemorates the place where Manuel Belgrano created the Argentine flag in 1812. But the true soul of the city is discovered walking along the boulevards, where century-old plane trees create green tunnels that protect from the summer sun, and in the streets of Barrio Pichincha, where Art Nouveau architecture mixes with the most contemporary urban art. There are several parks in the city, and most of them line the river. They are the green heart of Rosario, where residents run and cycle among the trees. From the riverfront instead, you can admire the modern skyline, while green islands dot the river, which in this stretch is over a kilometer wide. Tigre. Get on a boat and let yourself be cradled by the coffee-colored waters of the Rio de la Plata. Tigre is a liquid labyrinth where Buenos Aires dissolves into hundreds of islands, connected by channels that seem drawn by a capricious child. Here, the streets are rivers and the cars are boats that sail the calm waters between the colorful wooden houses that float. Tigre Station is a jewel of period railway architecture, while the Tigre Art Museum houses art collections in a palace that seems to come out of a European fairy tale. The gardens that surround the port color the banks with palms and tropical flowers, creating an enchanting contrast with the dark waters of the delta. Also for this reason, on weekends the inhabitants of Buenos Aires escape here to find silence and relaxation. The public boats instead take you through the channels where families live who cultivate flowers and vegetables on floating islands, selling their products at the fruit and vegetable market that takes place directly on the water. Tigre is proof that Argentina can also be this, a corner of peace where the Paraná Delta offers moments of quiet just a few kilometers from the chaos of Buenos Aires. Salta and Los Cardones. In northern Argentina, where the land rises majestically toward the clouds, rises the ancient city of Salta. Its streets interweave like a vivid mosaic, rich with buildings that change hue with the passing hours, while the sun illuminates the Calchaquí Valley. In the heart of Salta, the pink and cream cathedral rises imposingly on the main square, surrounded by arcades that tell centuries of Spanish colonial history. In Los Cardones National Park instead, thousands of giant cacti emerge from the arid earth, some watching over these places for over 300 years, silent witnesses to time that flows inexorably. Water, precious treasure in these dry lands, has patiently sculpted its path through the rocks, creating formations that evoke ancient pre-Columbian civilizations. Condors soar majestically over the deep gorges in search of prey, while vicuñas travel the paths traced by their ancestors through generations. Quebrada de Humahuaca and Purmamarca. A spectacular canyon crosses the Andes, revealing a geological history that dates back 10,000 years. The walls of the Quebrada de Humahuaca rise dramatically toward the sky, while the Rio Grande continues its millennial path, eroding the rock meter by meter, exactly as it has done for geological eras. When you reach Purmamarca, the famous Cerro de los Siete Colores completely dominates the horizon. These stratified rock layers tell the epic formation of the Andean mountains, while in the streets of the village below, life flows following ancestral rhythms, marked by the sound of the bells of the colonial church. The cobblestone streets of Purmamarca wind around the central square, where a colonial church has stood since 1648. While in the traditional market, one of the oldest in the Quebrada, The products of the earth mix with local crafts, and inhabitants move between colorful stalls and cobbled alleys. Cafayate and the Quebrada de las Conchas. The vineyards climb the valley slopes, nourished by the intense sun that beats on the characteristic red earth. Cafayate rises at 5,522 feet altitude, where the Torrontés grape has found its ideal habitat among the mountains, producing one of Argentina's most distinctive and appreciated wines. Here is also found the spectacular Quebrada de las Conchas that cuts the earth between Cafayate and Salta, where wind and water have sculpted the rock through millions of years of erosion. The river has carved its path through geological formations, creating the natural amphitheater, the suggestive Garganta del Diablo, and the particular Ventana, natural monuments that emerge from the canyon walls. The streets of the city of Cafayate, on the other hand, are laid out harmoniously around the central plaza, where the Church of Our Lady of the Rosary shines under the Andean sun. The deep silence of the Quebrada is interrupted only by the wind that blows between the rock formations, carrying with it the red dust of the valley. Tafí del Valle. Between the mountains of Tucumán at 6,500 feet altitude opens the suggestive valley of Tafí, where the Andean wind shapes the territory characterized by the menhirs, stone monoliths erected by the ancient Tafí civilization that remain as millennial guardians of history. The trails lead to breathtaking panoramic points from which the gaze spans freely, following the profile of the reliefs that follow one another to the infinite horizon. The days begin with silence, broken only by the sounds of uncontaminated nature, while the green pastures extend until reaching the shores of Lake La Angostura, crystalline mirror of water that gathers and reflects every shade of the sky. The archaeological remains, strategically hidden among the hills, testify to the presence of ancient peoples who here left indelible signs of their civilization. At sunset, the light transforms magically, transforming every corner of the landscape, while the wind continues its eternal journey, moving clouds and drawing ever new forms in the sky. Salinas Grandes. The horizon disappears at 11,319 feet altitude, and the Salinas Grandes extend for 82 square miles. They are of a blinding white, with the sky that reflects on the salt crust, creating a mirror effect that confuses every visual certainty. Walking here is like floating in a parallel dimension, where Earth becomes sky and silence has its own sound. This salt desert is born from the evaporation of an ancient Andean lake, and today salt workers continue to break the crust with pickaxes, gathering the grains and leaving them to dry under the implacable sun of the high plateau. But it's when the rainy season arrives that magic happens. Water transforms the surface into a perfect mirror, where clouds walk on the surface, and every form of life seems to levitate above the infinite. Pink flamingos arrive by the thousands, and create spots of color that contrast with the absolute white. There's also State Highway 52 that cuts this salt desert, while at the margins, llamas graze indifferent to the white immensity. Jujuy. Get ready to witness a land that changes color like a geological kaleidoscope. The mountains of Jujuy are the result of 600 million years of stratification that tell the story of the planet through shades that range from rust red to malachite green, and from intense violet to sulfur yellow. Here, among the Andean valleys, the cardon cacti rise like sentinels, and some exceed 500 years of age, immobile witnesses to a landscape that changes with the passing of time. Their monumental silhouettes dot the slopes, creating a surreal contrast between the spiny green of vegetation and the mineral tones of rock. But the landscape of Jujuy isn't only made of colored mountains. From the vastness of the desert highland, you descend to the green valleys of the Yungas, which is the subtropical jungle that contrasts with the arid areas, up to the borders with the Gran Chaco region in the southeast. In Maimara, the cemetery extends at the foot of rock walls that seem painted freehand, while further north, the peaks of Hornocal, known as the Mountain of 14 Colors, defy every chromatic logic. On the opposite slope, the Pucará de Tilcara watches from atop its hill and is an ancient pre-Columbian fortress that guards the secrets of peoples who already knew how to read the sky and venerate the earth. Iruya. Forget paved roads and prepare for a journey through time. To reach Iruya, you must cross Bolivia, travel dirt roads that climb among the clouds, and face heart-stopping curves. But when you finally arrive at this village of 1,200 souls, perched at 9,121 feet, you understand that every mile of effort was worth it. Iguazu seems to have grown from the rock itself. The adobe houses, that is of mud and straw bricks, cling to the slopes, while the stone paths go up and down, following the whims of the mountain. Here traffic lights don't exist, but only the slow rhythm of Andean life, where donkeys still transport loads, and ladies sell coca and quinoa on Saturday's little market. Finally, the colonial church from 1753 dominates the main square, with its white facade that contrasts with the red of the surrounding mountains. Catamarca. Welcome to the province that Argentina has almost forgotten. Catamarca hides among the folds of the Andes, like a well-kept secret where red sand deserts alternate with green oases and pink lagoons. Here we find Ojos del Salado, which at 22,615 feet is the highest active volcano in the world and dominates the border with Chile. There's also the Quebrada de las Angosturas, which is a multicolored canyon, and the Campo de Piedra Pómez, which is similar to a lunar landscape, with thousands of pumice stone formations that have been sculpted by wind into impossible shapes. In the Cañón del Indio, furthermore, the rock walls have shapes that recall indigenous faces, while narrow passages open between the red rocks of this ancient riverbed. But Catamarca isn't only desert. Indeed, at the margins of the sandy expanses grow algarobo forests, which are twisted trees that survive thanks to roots that sink up to 100 feet into the subsoil. Ibera wetlands. Water reigns sovereign in this habitat in the heart of Argentina, giving life to one of the most extensive wetland complexes in the South American continent. The channels interweave through the immense plain, forming an aquatic maze where life explodes luxuriantly in every way and form. Here, caimans rest motionless on the muddy banks, while capybaras, which are the largest rodents in the world, move calmly among the floating aquatic vegetation. The marsh deer, symbolic species reintroduced after decades of local extinction, finds refuge again among the thick marsh vegetation, while the imposing jabiras build their massive nests on top of the tallest trees. The Iberod ecosystem persists thanks to a most delicate balance, where every single species plays a crucial role in the intricate web of aquatic life. In these swamp waters, nature continues its uninterrupted cycle for millennia, tenaciously resisting the passage of time and the transformations of the surrounding world. Iguazú Falls. Do you hear that roar that increases as you approach? They are 275 waterfalls that precipitate from heights up to 269 feet, creating a spectacle that generates permanent mist visible for miles. Welcome to Iguazú Falls, where the river of the same name launches itself into the void in a triumph of spray and rainbows. The Devil's Throat is its beating heart, a U-shaped gorge where 14 waterfalls unite in a roar that you feel in your bones. When you look out from the suspended walkways, the water disappears into the abyss, raising a mist that completely envelops you, while swallows dart through the vapor and nest behind the waterfalls. But the Iguazu hide the Patagonian jungle, where jaguars and tapirs wander among cecropia trees and tropical palms. Here, nature doesn't whisper, it shouts its magnificence, with a power that leaves you speechless and with a heart that beats in unison with the eternal rhythm of falling water. Paraná River and Delta. Imagine a river that's born in Brazil and decides to take all the time in the world to reach the ocean. The Paraná, which means big as the sea, flows for 3,032 miles, gathering stories, sediments, and tributaries until surrendering in a delta of 5,405 square miles that is pure geographical poetry. During its long journey, it crosses 3 countries and becomes South America's water highway, transporting barges loaded with soybeans and wheat toward the ports of Rosario and Buenos Aires. Its coffee-colored waters feed hydroelectric dams and irrigate millions of acres of fields, while along its banks grow cities that owe their economic fortune to the generosity of this freshwater giant. Its delta, however, is not an ordinary one. It is among the largest in the world by area, a labyrinth of over 2,500 islands and islets, where the river branches into 1,000 winding channels. Here, fresh water meets the salt water of the Rio de la Plata, creating a unique ecosystem where freshwater and marine fish coexist and where weeping willows mirror themselves in the waters. Mar del Plata. On the Atlantic coast, where the ocean meets the Pampa, rises Mar del Plata as a bridge between 2 worlds. The sea shapes the land through waves that never stop beating on the coast, while fishermen's boats leave at dawn to return with nets full of hake and prawns that will end up in markets throughout the country. The Atlantic wind carries a salty scent through the streets of this city, while the Torre Tanque, 289 feet high, has dominated the horizon since 1943 as a red brick lighthouse that has seen generations and generations pass. During winter, when the city empties of tourists, southern right whales pass offshore during their northward migration, offering free shows to those who have the patience to scan the horizon. The city lives to the rhythm of seasons and tides, transforming from quiet fishing port to frenzied tourist destination with the change of seasons, when 2 million Argentines invade its beaches seeking sun and freedom. Puerto Madryn. In the depths of the Patagonian Sea, an ancient ritual comes to life. Southern right whales travel oceanic routes toward the Golfo Nuevo, transforming it into the place where life takes shape. From June to December, the waters become a school of survival, while mothers pass down to their young the secrets of marine life. The movements of cetaceans follow a primordial route in marine depths, when on land Magellanic penguins dig shelters in the coastal earth. The wind shapes the dunes, carrying with it the voices of orcas during the hunt, while the city guards the traces of Welsh pioneers who arrived in the 1800s, merging their traditions with the rhythm of tides. Peninsula Valdez. Stop and breathe in the salty air. What surrounds you is one of the planet's most precious natural sanctuaries. The Peninsula Valdez juts into the Atlantic like a natural fortress, where every square meter tells a story of extreme adaptation. Here, nature has created an open-air laboratory where you can observe evolution in action. The rugged coastlines hide colonies of seals and sea lions that have adapted to the continent's fiercest Patagonian winds. The peninsula's interior, instead, reveals a unique ecosystem. Armadillos that dig burrows up to 3 meters deep, gray foxes that hunt at sunset, and the unmistakable Patagonian mara that hops across the steppe with movements reminiscent of a kangaroo. But from the waters comes the most thrilling spectacle. The orcas voluntarily beach themselves to capture sea lion pups, a hunting technique passed down only in this corner of the world. La Pampa. Look at the horizon and try to find where the Earth ends. You won't succeed because the Pampa is infinity that has become prairie. "104,000 square miles of grass that undulates in the wind like a green sea, where gauchos have navigated on horseback for 3 centuries, guarding traditions that mix Spanish, indigenous, and Creole blood." This is the land that feeds Argentina and a good part of the world. Here grow the wheat that becomes Italian pasta and the soybeans that feed Asia, while 52 million cattle graze freely, producing the most prized meat on the planet. But the Pampa isn't just agriculture. Indeed, it's a subtle ecosystem where every gram of black earth tells stories of decomposition and rebirth. There are also traditional estancias that keep gaucho culture alive and are the large landed properties of gauchos, where days begin before dawn to round up cattle, brand calves, and repair fences. A journey to this place certainly helps understand why the inhabitants of Buenos Aires say that here beats the true heart of Argentina. Mendoza and the wine route. In the heart of the Andes, Mendoza reveals a world where nature has created perfect conditions for viticulture. The territory stretches between mountains and desert, where glacial meltwater flows through a canal system built by indigenous Huarpa centuries ago. Vineyards extend along the wine route, where hundreds of wineries transform grapes into wines that have conquered the world. The sandy soil and altitude above 3,000 feet create a unique microclimate, while the sun of the Cuyo region reflects off vine leaves climbing their supports. Days begin at dawn, when workers harvest clusters by hand, following traditions passed down through generations. At sunset, the sky displays a spectacle of colors, while in the cellars must slowly ferment in oak barrels, guarding the secrets of an ancient process. National Route 40. Prepare for Argentina's longest and wildest journey. Route 40, in fact, crosses the entire country. A journey of 3,107 miles, uniting 11 provinces and 20 national parks, crossing 236 bridges and 27 Andean passes. The route begins in the Puna, where volcanoes dominate the landscape and flamingos gather in high-altitude lagoons. The road continues through wine valleys at 9,843 feet altitude, then descends into the wind-beaten Patagonian steppe. The journey ends at Cabo Vergennes, meeting point between continent and ocean, where penguins occupy the coast. Truckers and travelers have traversed this route for decades, overlapping colonial caravan paths and gaucho routes across the territory. This, therefore, is Argentina, a kaleidoscope of natural and cultural wonders that challenge the imagination. And if you want to explore other fantastic places in the world, choose from our playlist that you find here on the right.